I'm going to call this meeting to order. Mr. Harrison, would you please provide us with the invocation?
I will. Pray with me. Our Father in heaven, it's one more time we bow our head and humble our heart before you. We thank you, Father, for this beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you, Lord, for this county that we've been privileged to be born in and to live in and to work. And we just pray that you would give us the wisdom that we need, Father, to make the decisions that are in the best interest of all of our citizens. We ask you to forgive us for our sins. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Without objection, I would like to adjust the agenda slightly. I'd like to move item L under second budget hearings up to A, because I understand he's got some appointments. I'd also like to add a letter N to the end of this, and this is discussion of changes in highway per some guidance from the state that we've received. And then under E, or for the workshop, I'd like to add under E, discussion of movement of ARPA money from broadband toward water. Without objection, I'd like to make those changes. Are there any other changes to the agenda, suggested changes? Okay.
Approve with corrections.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okie dokie. Do we have anybody signed up to speak? Nobody signed up to speak? Okay.
Chairman, is there any additional package?
Oh, yes. Do we have an extra packet for Mr. Becker?
Oh, I didn't see you come in, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you came in like a ninja.
Mike, did you want to tell them how long they get for the
Yes, I'll do that. Thank you. So I originally wanted to give 10 minutes, but here's what we're going to do when we're speaking here. We're going to start with 5. I think that will be sufficient for most people. There are likely to be a couple that will go over, and we'll go in 5-minute increments from there. During that time, we'll likely suspend the rules, so it'll be okay. But we'll shoot for 5 minutes per for everything under the second budget hearing. Thanks, Mr. Long, for that reminder. I have no report. Mr. Long, your report on the overall budget, please.
If you look at the general fund, and this is where I generally want to start because it's the main operating fund. If you look at last year, the difference between budgeted unassigned revenues and appropriations was 5.7. This year at 5.4. This year here we're anticipating actually picking up some money, and in most years you would, but because of concerns with inflation and with revenues, because some of them are quite unstable at this point, just like we received the information from Highway today. I would recommend that we probably need to cut that number down to no more than $5.2 million. Let's go on through, Bethany. The other one, and we'll kind of mention it briefly because it'll need to be discussed much more, is highway. Let's go to highway fund. Your highway fund, the State Director of Local Finance recommends you have 2 months of expenditures. If we don't have at least 1 month of expenditures, they'll give us a note because it's so concerning on our budget. If you go down, that's what we're currently at. And that's 1 month of expenditures, and that's how much the county's short right now. And also, and it'll be in your packet later, today that will probably get worse because you probably need to revisit highway funds because we just got a deposit, well, the state just got a deposit for the gas tax, and it was rather bad, so their association is now recommending decreasing the appropriate or the adjusted revenues for next year.
Can you state that again? That we are. Let me, if it's okay, I would like to restate this. Gas, because of this latest deposit, gas tax projections are falling well short, or the state gas tax projections are falling well short of where they expected them to be. Right. And this is pretty much this is somewhat in line, I think, with what we've been seeing on the sales tax projections being short. Is that fair?
Yes, we're going to meet budget this year, but what I have estimated for the rest of the year, I'm now concerned. And then next year, I'm now concerned because the state's saying they're not going to meet their projections this year. And we've actually got the packet from the highway, I think it's actually from CTAS and the Highway Officials Association. Toby was kind enough to send me a copy of it as soon as he got it this morning. He got it over the weekend. So that probably does need to be revisited. The other one's kind of good news, the debt service fund. Let's get it across. Your debt service fund looks good. It looks like it's going to pick up about $3.8 million. Your maximum that you would want in there based on arbitrage rules is about 3.8 this year and about 19.8 next year, considering if we don't issue any new debt. The county, when they issue bonds, the interest on those in most instances is tax exempt to the investor or purchaser. Because of that, because when we issue those in their tax exempt earnings, we buy CDs and accounts of things that would be taxable investments. The IRS does not want us buying, taking excessive bond funds and actually buying investments and earning excessive funds. So there are several arbitrage rules about spend downs and the amount of cash you can have, or you have to rebate it to the IRS. One of the rules is you should not have more than 13 months of principal and interest in your debt service fund or for a reasonably foreseeable, for instance, if we were going to refund some debt. Since we don't have any refunding of debt in the near future, because it's going to be at least 2 years before it is even callable, then we need to keep this balance below this, but you're well below this. Next year, we'll have to start visiting it because projections right now, you're going to pass that.
So can you say that just very simply? We have a cap of 13 months principal and interest that we are allowed to keep in debt service.
Yes.
One. This year, that total allowable is 33.7 million, or 33,789,000. And in that, we're hitting what projected a little shy of 28 million.
Yes.
But what that means is next year we can only have a maximum of 19 because we will have 10 million of total allowable that falls off. Is that right?
As long as we don't issue any new debt. Yes.
That's
we
right.
should try to pull it down to no more than $19.7 million.
We have one question. Go ahead.
So, make sure I'm understanding this. You're saying that, is this a federal law or is this a state law?
It's not a state law, it's the federal for arbitrage. So what it does is, we have several projects right now where we're building and doing construction, like the school, we're finishing those in the courthouse. There are several rules on arbitrage because our actual earnings on our bonds are tax exempt. So there's several rules about rebates and arbitrage. If we carry more than the 13 months of interest and principal or foreseeable, it changes those arbitrage calculations and makes it more likely that we'll have to rebate excess interest to the IRS. We won't be coming in and physically penalized, but because we're carrying excess amounts in our sinking fund. In other words, they don't want us carrying excess funds in there.
If I'm hearing you correctly, my goal is to pay off debt. So you're saying we're not allowed to pay off debt at a faster schedule because of this federal law?
No. If it's reasonably foreseeable, you can, but if we go to the debt service schedule, it's quite a bit over.
If you can call it, yes. but
They'll
we don't
call
have
David
to
our
call it.
bonds on it, have not approached.
Sure, but you're saying you're capping us off at 19 million, but you
If
can't
you-
put
if
35
you-
million in there next year. is
If
what
we
you're
develop
saying.
an actual written plan, then yes, we would be fine. If you want to develop a plan where we would,
So it's possible.
it's possible if you want to carry more. But I'm saying right now, unless we do a plan and stuff, it's not advisable at this point to develop one. There's some notes down here.
And the majority of this debt is at what percent interest?
It varies. Some of them are, the face is 3% and 5%. Everybody talks about the low interest rate that we receive on our debt, correct? But you've got to think about that. For instance, we issue debt at a premium. So if we issue $90 million worth of face debt, we may receive $100 million worth of funds. What that means, that $10 million extra cash actually means the true interest cost is lower. But your face on your bonds would actually be higher. So when we actually are, after the call date, when we're refunding them, we'd be basing that on the call. I think most of them are around 3%.
Yeah.
But right now, some of your interest on your bank accounts are.
So I think there's a fair argument here when inflation is riding as high as it is, that it's kind of like a mortgage. It doesn't necessarily make sense to pay off debt that's riding considerably lower than inflation all in bulk, because you lose, if you're riding at 9% inflation and you pay off a 3% debt, you lose the 6.
Yeah, you're making money.
Yeah.
As long as the rate is higher.
I mean, I'm all about paying off debt, but there is some math that
Some of our investments, and I'd have to pull from the trustee's office, some of our investments may actually be approaching there, if not past it at this point.
But we've not incurred any new debt, correct?
No, sir, you
Okay.
actually this year, no, we should have last year's schedule, you paid off $7 million.
yeah, all of these projections are based on, like we said, no new bonds. Pretty buildings, sustainable increases.
But to answer
No departments.
Mr. Mansfield's question 100%, if you've got a plan to do early refunding, yes.
And
Or balloon payments, which we don't have.
at what time do you deal with this plan?
You could deal with it during the year. Because right now,
Anytime.
you're not gonna pass it this year, you would pass it potentially next year. So it gives you time to determine what you wanna
I think
do.
it'd be something for
And in
financial
your
management.
opinion, would that be dealt with by financial management or budget?
It would be more toward financial management.
Okay.
But there's got to be a reasonable expectation that you can pay it.
If we're gonna call it and pay it, and with rates right now, if the rate things are going to surpass what we're paying on the debt, that may not be what we actually wanna do at that point. But if we're earning 3.5 and the bonds are at 3, it'd be better to leave the cash in the
Yeah.
account to the interest rates flip around.
Yeah.
And that may be, we'll have to check with somebody how the plan can work 100%. And the question, there is some cost when you do refund bonds also call in. You'll have to call them in and refund them. And then here's our long-term projections, that's something me and Mr. Schultz were talking about. These are something that does not necessarily have to be visited tonight, but it would be nice to. But it is something that you need to, I guess we need to get together on the assumptions and figure out how you want to look at them before the actual budget's published. In other words, tonight you need to, before the budget's actually approved. Tonight, if at all possible, you need to get to the point where you have a budget where you can potentially approve. That way, on the 5th, if you approve the education, when those two together can be published, the way the county commission can approve them. Because the budgets have to be published at least 10 days before the county commissions approves them. And they have to be in the paper no more than 5 days after the county commission approves them for consideration. In other words, we can't send them to you more than 5 before, and they have to be published at least 10 before you approve them.
And Mr. Long, can you maybe go over the discussion you and I had about what, the deficit spending here that's something we were looking at pretty intently. And I know the way you're calculating this is extremely conservative, which I'm all about, but it's, that probably gives us more cushion than what you're seeing.
This is what's estimated to pick up in 2023, because we've had a pretty good year. The inflation's been here, but the economy's had some issues, but it's been running relatively good. This is what we're looking at next year, and we want to agree with the budget, because what we have is, for instance, you have, can you go on up, Beth? This is the actual budgeted revenues over there for 2024.
Is that what we have now budgeted based on
Yes,
the
sir.
last
Ties
workshop?
right- Ties right to it, automatically. What these are is your appropriations, and what it does over the last 5 years, it took the highest percent of appropriations that the office has spent. So that's probably gonna be an inflated number, but a conservatively inflated number. If we change that to the average over 5 years, my best guess is it would probably get rid of this number, and it's probably more realistic. The number I have is very conservative. That's some of the, assumptions that we need to talk about tonight, because I don't think you want to put forward a long-term plan showing deficit spending that probably really doesn't exist. So two things you got to think too, if you cut 200,000 out of that disparity on the real fund, and we go back, instead of me using the highest number here,
So-
we use the average of 5 years, it's going to lower that number potentially.
So let me explain this really as simply as I can here. What Mr. Long does for these projections is for each department, he takes, and I agree, I like this logic because it's very conservative, but he looks at the last 5 years and takes the worst performing year. And by worst performing, I mean the year in which that we spent the highest percentage against of what was budgeted. So if somebody spent 85, 80, 92, 110, he takes the 110. And then he applies that 110, that worst look, to the existing year's budget.
The 24 budget.
And then we come up with, hey, and what it gives you is kind of a worst case scenario a worst reasonable case scenario based on the last 5 years running. I like the logic, but it also it potentially, I think, inflates the likelihood of running at a deficit for the next 2 years.
It takes a false deficit, it probably does not exist.
But it also shows that we've got to be, as we go into the budget cycle, or like the next year, we've got to actually make sure that we don't burn over our budgets. Because some years we did.
Then the years for 25 and 26, because 7 and 8 is going to actually show up in your actual budget document based on your current rules. We don't go that far out. But these right here are actually based on a trend. What it does is uses the projection, actually function out of Excel, which uses some of the squares, basically tries to create a
Yeah.
linear projection for you. These, because you are a new commission and you're committed to avoiding deficit spending, these are historical trends, so we probably need to get together and determine as a committee what your plans are and adjust those trends. So that means probably, based on your best judgment, adjusting some of those trends down.
Well, and I think this year is already gonna be a data point on that, right? Because,
I use the historical, but we can pull that one.
yeah, like, that would be super interesting to see change in year over year, because I know after, the SROs themselves adding that in is gonna radically skew that. I mean, that's 52 new employees.
Over several years.
Yeah.
And then there's some other things that skew.
Go.
We try to remove some of the skewing, but
Go
not
ahead.
all of it.
And so using that logic, the 4.3 million up there for June 2023 would also be conservative.
That,
Except you've got
this
almost 11
23
months.
going down, Bethany, showing unassigned. This is total revenue and expenditure. Your unassigned, we think, is gonna pick up about 1.9. That logic, we actually went through every single account based on current expenditures and try to project them on the most likely, not actual. So that's why we're showing, that we think that's probably really gonna be pretty close.
So we're 6.1 million off.
On this one, you're actually picking up 1.9 this year.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying,
This
your
here-
estimate was 4.3, and you're actually coming up in negative.
No, this
Two-
4.3 is totally something different. That's the difference between your revenue and expenditures. This past year, a considerable amount of hospital funds and one-time funds was spent.
Okay.
They spent, was it $7.5
$7.5
million
million
out of the hospital, so that's your total change. That's why I put this number on the bottom of this year unassigned, because if you spend something that's restricted, it's one time, it's really gonna skew your numbers.
Yeah.
That's why you really need to focus more down into, that's your unassigned or what's completely available. And as I'm saying, this one right here, super conservative, this one based on historical trends, so two things need to happen. One, we probably need to look if that's too conservative, if it's making calls. Number two, we need to look at the historical trends. I adjust them for things I know, but since I'm a non-voting member, I don't know what's gonna happen in the future. You have a better idea. You guys are voting members of the commission.
Any other questions?
But that's kind of the budget at a very high, very simple level, and I have a lot of notes for later after the hearing.
I just want to move us along, because I know we've got a lot of work to get done. Are there any other questions on this? Did you have anything else, Mr. Long, that you wanted to hit?
No, not until we go into actual things that need to be adjusted.
I would entertain a motion to, for the second budget hearings, to suspend the rules.
Second, or I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Rules are suspended so that we can ask questions directly. So we'll have Veteran Services up first per the amended agenda.
I prepared just a little one-page kind of handout, you can pass them around. Thank you, sir. What we're asking for is a fund the part-time position. Last year, our budget was about $170,000. This year, as proposed, it's about $135,000, $140,000. So we're not even asking for more money than we had last year. We're asking for less, even if you funded this position for $21,000. I always try to start with a good news story. Just today, you see item number one, found a veteran, found a 4-year-old error that the VA made, and got him $37,000 today. Came into his pocket, and he's going to get $37.50 a month for the rest of his life. That's just the kind of stuff that we're out here doing, but we're a little bit overworked. So we have a high-quality office where capacity is suffering. And you see that we're the second worst in Middle Tennessee when it comes to the ratio of veterans to service officers. We're already running a steady 1 month behind trying to get into a veteran. This is for a 1-hour meeting. It would take us 3.5 years to have a single 1-hour meeting with all the veterans in our county, the way we're currently staffed. The result is that we're getting 50 to 100% less funding from the VA per veteran than the counties in our benchmarks. So we're simply just not putting the hours in, and we need the additional people to do the hours. So I ask for your support.
Mr. Brown, do you have a question?
Well, I do support what, he needs to get some help in that office. I mean, we're definitely behind on a lot of this stuff. And I know we cut his part-time person last time, didn't we?
I think what we did was say it was one or the other. there was a,
No,
but,
I think he kept his raise.
yeah, we were basically like, which of the two? And I don't know if we want to discuss that during, I would like to maybe hold for the decision-making to the workshop time, just in the interest of, but, Mr. Klein?
So the way this works is you get paid for every veteran you see? Is that how that works?
We're regular county employees, you get an hourly rate.
Okay, so it says results are 50 to 100% less VA funding per veteran.
Correct.
Wow.
There's a VA report that comes out
benefits.
every year,
Get them
and
anything.
there's $140 million that came into Sumner County through the VA into our veterans' pockets and our businesses and our schools.
Okay,
That amount divided by the number of veterans we have in our county
uh-huh,
is about $12,000 for FY '22.
uh-huh.
Our benchmark counties are going at $18,000 and $24,000 per veteran every fiscal year.
Okay, so it really doesn't have anything to do with the help you need?
Well, the help I would need would get me to get in to see more veterans, so we would be able to get more of the claims in, so we could provide better support to the courts and to the schools.
Okay.
And get additional money coming from the VA to our veterans and to our businesses.
Okay, so it does have to do with
So
funds,
there's a
okay.
month's waiting list right now.
It's a 1 month waiting
1
list.
month right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So the faster we could get in to see our veterans, the better service we can provide.
And the more funding you'll get from the VA.
Well, the county gets through,
County gets it through taxes. The VA
And that's
doesn't
the-
pay the
that's the
county.
flow
direct.
down.
Oh, okay, okay.
it's
goes
kind
to our
of a
businesses
second and
and to our
third order
veterans.
flow down, but
Yeah.
it's still, I mean, it's people getting,
Helps your veterans get the money that's due to them.
Right.
yeah.
More time to.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Development services.
He actually has his handouts on your attachments. You asked Josh to come back and present, one, some of the payroll disparities that he was concerned about, and number two, potential future fee changes. So it's actually in the document, there's several pages.
Josh, go ahead. Thank you, sir.
So it's all, I've got copies if anybody doesn't have their packet with them, but y'all may remember the last time I came and spoke to the budget committee. One of the things I'm proposing to do, kind of is a threefold kind of thing I want to talk about today like I did last time. We got a couple vacant positions here. Total cost, salary, and benefits for both of those, $153,000. On the other page, what we're proposing to do is take those two positions and combine them into a new assistant director position, assistant planning director. As I had mentioned during my presentation last time, I'm kind of operating that capacity as far as planning. We don't have a planning department like our colleagues in Hendersonville and some other places do. I'm kind of the planning department that oversees the engineering stuff, and the stormwater stuff, and the floodplain stuff, which is pretty much staffed up pretty well. And so I'm needing a little bit of assistance as far as working with the Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission, preparation of meeting materials, presentations, and agenda items and those kinds of things. And getting comments and that kind of stuff to the developers and engineers and surveyors that turn things in. So the substance of that change, you end up with basically a $35,000 cost savings as a result of that. And so, as y'all may remember last time, I said I am a good bureaucrat that doesn't propose to leave that money on the table. I do propose to do something with it. And so, Mr. Lawing had mentioned that I needed to call some surrounding counties and look at salaries and that kind of thing as well. We've had some turnover last few years. Our county engineer position turned over a while back. Very difficult to fill that position. We lucked out, no offense, Mayor Clary, and stole a pretty good employee from the city of Henderson. And we were able to get a really great, in my opinion, really great, top quality county engineer to help us that gets customer service, that gets engineering and transportation planning and engineering, all those things. And so with him and other folks, as a stormwater manager, and I am looking at my position as well. I provided the example of Rutherford County and what those folks, how they compensate those employees. I kind of thought they might be an outlier a little bit. I thought maybe they had gotten some kind of crazy pay study or something that put them way up there. But from looking at it, it's not. Montgomery County and Williamson County basically are in the same league. We're running 20 to 30% below what they are. And so it might be possible. I'd like to, I don't want to propose any numbers necessarily to the board unless y'all want me to, but I'd like to at least have that considered as part of the cost savings that I'm proposing with the consolidating those two positions. And in addition to that, we had talked a little bit about some things some surrounding counties are doing as far as fees. Rutherford County is a little bit of a, in my opinion, a little bit of a, maybe out there, just a little bit example of some things that they're doing right now. They're looking at increasing engineering and planning fees to the point that it's gonna cost you about $5,000 per lot, $4,000 to $5,000 per lot to get through the process, to get to the point where you build. That's a priority they have because the impact fees wasn't able to make it through the state legislature, but as was pointed out, this isn't gonna impact anything in the cities in Rutherford County, it's just gonna be outside. And so I don't know whether that approach is maybe something that we ought to do. But what I did do in this little fee summary here, I tried to pinpoint some fees that are just low, that don't really cover the amount of time and effort at the staff level that goes into them. Some of these fees have been in place for a very long time, just like they are today. There's a zoning variance fee that's at $75. That's been there since the early 90s. It's been $75. That doesn't come close to covering what would it cost us if the staff was prepared the public notice, answer the phone calls, and deal with the applicant and everything, getting them ready to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. That's one example. Sketch plats, another. We're looking at increasing those fees. None of these are dramatic fee increases. They're really incremental. As you guys know as well as anybody, we're in a very inflationary environment, obviously. And so this is just a way to kind of help offset the expenses that it takes to run the department. Our goal has always been, to the extent possible, to make sure that the people that come into our office for services are the ones that pay for those services to the extent possible, rather than it coming from property taxes and sales taxes and those kinds of things.
This revenue impact is 12 months?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So down at the bottom, I tried to take the Mr. Long approach and be extremely conservative on these. With the fee increases that are proposed, the fee changes, my estimated impact is a little less than $100,000 a year in additional revenue that this would generate. And an example of how I'm trying to be conservative here, the land disturbance permit fee, we're looking to increase that from $300 to $400 a year. We do about 800 land disturbance permits per year, give or take, half of the last several years. I'm estimating that at basically being 500 land disturbance permits. So all the numbers that I've calculated here, I've tried to understand what they probably might bring in and to back them back off a good bit, because I think things are slowing down a little bit, as we talked about last time. I don't know what it's going to look like in a year exactly, but I think that the pace that we were going through back during the last couple of years, I don't think that's going to keep up the way that it has.
Mr. Whitler, I've got a question for you. Do these fee changes need to be approved by the full commission, or is this something that
Oh, yeah.
they would need to all be approved by the commission?
Yes, I would say we have to be.
Adopted and approved
Yes.
probably through budget?
In the past, what they've done is they've actually sent fees along with the budget if you want to incorporate them.
So we can build it into this budget?
If you send the fees at the same time, and then if they decide not to approve the fees, then you just amend the budget down on the floor for the $98,000.
Okay.
That's a.
Got it.
option.
Mr. Mansfield, then I'll get you, Mr. Klein.
I guess my first comment is no offense, but we're not looking to be like Rutherford, Montgomery, or Williamson County when it comes to their growth. They're not exactly models that we're going after. So as far as comparison to all due respect, but I see your fee schedule and you're talking about Rutherford County doing it because of the state refuses to do the Property Taxpayer Protection Act. So I mean, you're talking about a $98,000 increase in fees, but I guess the issue is I don't like the idea of increasing any kind of fees. I just don't, on the surface level. But this would not be to increase what the revenue that your department makes. The reason we're having the growth issues we have is paying for schools. And so, to me, any funds that are captured from growth need to go into a lockbox that is strictly going towards paying off school debt and for new school capital construction costs that we incur. So I don't know what your plan was this. As far as this is great that this is a plan, but basically hearing what Rutherford County said as far as capturing those funds because they cannot do their any type of fee structure to pay for their growth. This is another way they're offsetting that, but if they're just putting it back into their development or their planning department, that kind of defeats the purpose of the reason that we're raising the fees it defeats their logic or their argument of why they're, and I guess I'm just making sure if this is at a request, this is a request that this is because we're looking to offset school capital construction costs for the counties, I guess. Is that-
Certainly, and I defer to Mr. Long on budget interpretations, but ultimately it goes into the general fund and it offsets what it costs to run the general fund, and that offset can go wherever you want it to go.
What he's saying now though is, that these particular inspections that we're doing is not even covering their own costs. So when that happens, ultimately what happens is the property taxpayer.
That's right.
Your existing citizens are paying. So that's what Josh is telling you, these are not even recovering their costs. He's trying to get closer to a cost recovery for those.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, costs kind of become what they become, and the question is, do you make the people who are causing some of the growth take that burden, or do you spread it out over existing people through property tax in the long run? And the other thing I might add, and Mr. Klein, I know you had your hand up, was that, and we'll talk about this probably in the workshop, but if you want to put barriers toward, up around development, like raising fees associated with it is another way to do it. But anyway, that's my thought. But Mr. Klein?
Josh, is there a mandated maximum or ceiling that you can put on any of these fees?
No, sir. Now, I'll defer to Mr. Long there. You don't want necessarily to make a profit. We're not in the making a profit business off of people. But we strive, like I said, we work toward being revenue neutral.
Are you trying to effectively make it impossible to develop it all?
They're trying to cover their costs and.
Yeah, I want to make sure, I want to make sure that the taxpayers are not again subsidizing
Yeah.
our planning department.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that they're covered, because they're an incredibly lean organization up there in planning.
And you gotta think about the amount of inflation we've been under with gasoline.
So
They drive out to these.
Just to keep us moving along, did you have anything else you wanted to present?
No, sir.
Do we have?
Can I ask-
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I
Can I
didn't see.
clarify, I think, a comment that Mr. Mansfield said, I think needs clarification, at least from my standpoint. I think, if I understood Mr. Suther's request, not necessarily a request, a little soft request, is use the 35,000 difference from the going from the 2 to the 1 FTE to maybe look at the service director, county engineer, and stormwater manager. I didn't hear any type of request of the 98,000 going toward that. So I just want to make sure that.
Well, we will take whatever you got.
Well, the 98,000 all comes back in. I mean, it's just revenue.
I understand it. We could do anything we want to do with it, but I wanted to just make that comment.
Your engineer and your director is pretty far out behind Mr. Ball counties. The stormwater not so much so, he's somewhat a little bit, but your actual director and your engineer's pretty far out.
Did you get your,
Yeah, that's fine.
any other questions?
The only other thing I had, and this is something that has been brought up a couple times by a couple people at the table. The department name is Development Services. And I had a couple of county commissioners that had called me saying they wanted to look at something different. And so I'm fine with that. It might cost a couple $1,000s in rebranding if that's something that everybody wants to do.
I was the one.
But you weren't the only one. You weren't the only one.
Because it just got
Weeks
changed 2 years ago.
Change as you go.
And so if y'all wanted to, I mean, what I would humbly request is something like kind of innocuous planning and engineering. I think is a very, if a change was wanted, if y'all want to leave it alone.
I think we can handle that in a different setting. This is dollars and cents setting, but got it. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sutter. Human Resources.
Good evening, committee. I stand as a humble leader who is seeking understandings from the community body of the travesty of learning the Human Resources Department has been recommended for defunding in the 2023-24 fiscal year budget. On May 4th, I stood before you and delivered a normal budget request with no extra fluff, where no questions or responses from this group as to consideration of the intended recommendation. Learning of this the following Monday by email with no explanation but told by my superior to watch the Budget Committee workshop session via the YouTube video recording for answers and explanations. Upon watching the video with my department staff member, Ms. Kim White, we both were astonished and quite disturbed with what we viewed and listened to. Not acceptable. In viewing the video, the verbiage and the actions of the committee was all across the board regarding the discussion about defunding. It first opened with the committee chair stating, well, let me cut to the chase and get the elephant out of the room. No actual vote took place amongst the committee members, as happened in other committee discussions for other budgets that had questionable items which yielded a vote. Some committee members stated they did not understand the need to do this, and others were silent. It was heard that the impetus, initial discussion to defund or the foundation route came from the county finance director. The finance director stated he had had discussions with the law director of moving my department staff member back to the legal department under risk management, but no discussion on my whereabouts or my exit plan. 6 weeks notification from the end of the fiscal year. Not professionally acceptable. The law director even walked in during the discussion and chimed in on the considered action. There was no factual data, analysis, quantitative information discussed or shared as to what formal basis was he established to make this recommendation. No questions asked of myself or discussion with me for response. And then just this past week, I learned firsthand knowledge from a valid source, one of the committee members, that my superior was initially approached about the defunding situation. However, he gave no supporting stance to preserve the department. Not acceptable. After learning about the defunding recommendation, I posed 10 questions regarding the basis of the recommendation, and no answers were returned to me. I even copied the entire Board of Commissioners because of the egregious nature of this situation. The Budget Committee Chair visited my office last Wednesday to discuss raised concerns about the defunding recommendation. It was a very open and a collegial conversation, and I thank you, Commissioner Shelton. Points raised. The fact that with the new 2022 county administration, the HR department has never received any formal or informal work expectations. No goals, no department strategic planning, no visionary direction, or nor direct oversight for day-to-day or strategic planning related to the framework of the department. Each discussion about this concern has always yielded a response from my superior that this hinges upon the Board of Commissioners reviews take place, okay? Elected officials wanted to do with the department. It always goes back to, it's gonna be up to the commissioners as to what happens to this department. Each discussion yielded that response. No county-wide or direct performance reviews have taken place. No evaluations or metrics take place. No training and development has been established or committed to, only resistance. The few on-the-spot projects, requests, and assignments given by my superior were successfully completed with no formal established timelines or benchmarks given at the request, and no follow-up for the implementation of said projects after completion. A county organizational chart I completed, developing that, separation policies, FMLA reviews. I have asked for a seat at the table to serve by virtue of my department traditional duties and responsibilities on various county committees. Yet I still sit in the audience. I have been denied the opportunity to do my job as a qualified human resources professional. My name has been added to a state audit documentation, which we just discussed before this committee meeting, for corrective measures unbeknownst to me. Nothing was discussed about the fact that my name was added to a state document, and I didn't even know about the document existed. I have been thwarted in my desire to create effective and efficient paths of benefit, cost savings, and to provide needed structure to promote the career growth and personal welfare of Sumner County employees. Our department has met opposition from day one of being a department from the finance department, not providing access to material, not passing on the information, and passing on knowledge of past practices, policies, and processes because of their lack of knowledge of past processes due to extreme finance department turnover and unwillingness to meet and collegially release responsibility as needed. Also, having been exposed to continuous badgering related to problems that surface from both departments, not fully understanding processes due to the fact that no one in finance understands the full complexity of human resources management. As the committee chair indicated, you are feeling like the department has been set up for failure. Not professionally acceptable. Sumner County employees' livelihood will be greatly impacted by decision to defund the department. Review of processes, policies, procedures, benefits, job descriptions, compensation, professional and personal needs to assist in performing job duties and functions, constituent needs, training and development needs, employee relation needs, county, state, regional, and federal compliance needs, again, will greatly be impacted by this decision to defund the HR department. If this action happens, we will be an anomaly in public sector government across the state as well as the country. It is unheard of not to have a human resources department. Where there is no leadership in this area, the employees will suffer and perish, and so will the future growth and prosperity of this county. This action will disenfranchise employees in so many ways. Based on all of the factors involved on this situation, please know it will be a huge liability for Sumner County to defund this department in more than just one way. It is my sincere hope that this can be remedied, resolved collegially for the good of Sumner County government. Maybe it requires new management oversight by a board committee or another elected official. Maybe it's a contracted position to a personnel board. You have asked other employees about their desired placement in county in their direct reporting to afford workplace success. So why can't there be a plan to support HR, especially since you all bought it back in 2021? I value my job and performance as a 31-year tenured human resources professional. I place high value on Sumner County employees. I'm not throwing in the towel because I'm purposed to lead in this capacity. So why am I being targeted? It certainly feels that way. This is a bigger problem than not just defunding the department. It also becomes a problem of how I have been treated as an individual. The question is still, why have I been exposed to this decision? I still have no definitive answers. I am left to ponder why. It's ironic that similar action happened about 12 to 15 years ago to another HR professional who was also a woman of color. Is it because I am too thorough in being transparent, compassionate, loyal, integral, and morally and ethically savvy? Is it because I am a seasonably aged professional at 59 years of age here with normal progressive and genetic health issues and limitations? Please help me and the county employees understand. I stand professionally strong, but personally I am mentally distraught and anguished about this action. Please know that I can rise above it and move on either way it goes, because that's what a true HR professional does. And we do it well. This department is pinnacle and vital, and I humbly request on the behalf of all of the employees in the county and myself that a human resource department remains in the county with the proper framework, support, and alignment needed. Are there any questions? I'll be happy to entertain questions, since my questions were never answered.
Are there any questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
I appreciate the written statement there. It was early on in your statement, you said something about not having any goals or vision, can you sort of repeat just that one?
I stated that there has been no framework from my leadership, from my superior, as far as providing the department with no goals, no visionary plans, no direction. It's my concern that it's under new administration. I had goals when I was hired. I had information, but the mantle somewhere has been dropped. Every action, every idea, wherever I'm trying to provide training and development and growth and cost savings, I've asked for a seat at the table. Again, I'm the international president of the Public Sector Human Resources Association in the United States of America.
Yeah, but your department, you've created the goals, you've created the vision, or they've just haven't been there? I missed that. Your statement was confusing.
They were not established under our new leadership as of 2022. When the new administration came on board, there were no direct goals. There's no visionary leadership. When I first started in 2021, there was no clear delineation of pulling the duties into human resources. It should have been done then, yes. That should have been well defined before Mr. Holt, Mayor Holt left office from that standpoint. However, he gleaned toward making sure that his successor would be able to come in and provide those things. I have not received any guidance. I've received no goals. There is no interest in supporting. And then when I learned that my superior knew about this defunding, and I was told to go watch a video.
So I just want to make it, Mr. Becker, are you done? Or do you have others?
Go ahead, I'm not done. Go ahead.
Well, for the record, we did have a couple discussions, and I do appreciate your time. And I said this in the last meeting, and I'll say it now. I do think that at least part of my rationale on this thought regarding this department is that it was not implemented properly. And this is a decision about how to move forward given that. And that's really it. With that said, and I think that was some of the discussion you and I had. With that said, and I asked you these questions there, and I mean, forgive me for pressing a little bit.
That's fine.
But you noted that you are a highly seasoned and highly ranked, if we want to call it, HR professional. As such, when you came to the office not receiving strategic guidance from non-HR professionals, did you build that? Did you build those policies, procedures? Did you build that strategic guidance?
I could not, because everything that I've attempted to do to move this department forward has been thwarted.
That was, thanks. That was my only question. Go, did you have anything else?
Yes. So, okay, I was trying to retrain thought. So the first piece of information that I got that this was even going to be talked about was when you finished up in our hearing, and right as you walked away, you made a comment that said something supporting the department. So in my mind, I was like, "Whoa! So something's going on here. There's a reason she says this." That was the first time I picked up on anything. So, so then when we had the workshops and we talked about it, from my standpoint, again, taking the personal side out of it, as long as the services are being completed for our employees, I don't necessarily care who does it. I mean, as long as they're being done. So I would like to understand, and I'm sure we don't have it right now, but I would like to understand all the responsibilities that the current HR department provides, like sort of current versus what we talked about, let's say current and as is, or whatever you want to call it, and just see which pieces may not be mapped. Because then I would like to understand, hey, these are some vital pieces, or maybe I don't know.
I think those are fair, and I mean, I think that's a good. I just think that's part for the workshop.
No, I'm not talking about doing it right now, but I would like to understand that before I can make a final decision.
So I think that's part for the workshop, and I mean, I think that discussion, and we kind of went into it last couple weeks ago, but are there any other questions or comments for our HR director? Anything else? Thank you, ma'am. All right, Sheriff's Office.
Good evening. So, I'll be really short and simple here. When we got the stuff back from the very first budget meeting, it showed that you guys gave the 2 patrol deputies and the 5 court security officers, and you eliminated the 1 patrol lieutenant. What I'm asking is to take those 2 patrol deputies that you gave us and make the 1 lieutenant. So take the 2 patrol deputies out and make the 1 lieutenant. Here's my rationale. I can take 2 deputies and put them on 2 different shifts, or I can take the 1 lieutenant, assign him to a shift, take the lieutenant who's seeing 2 shifts, put him on 1 shift, and streamline our chain of command and the efficiency of the office. It's actually a net to the county. It's going to cost a little less to add a lieutenant than it is the 2 deputies, so that would be my request.
That's more health insurance. So, decrease cost.
Any questions?
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Election Commission. Do we have anyone from the Election Commission here? Okay. What's that? Thanks, Jerry. County Mayor.
County business, county buildings, we had part-time, we took 5,000 and moved it to, my budget. And we took 5,000 and moved it to David Lawing's budget. I would like the remaining 5,000 to be put back into part-time for county buildings. You remove 15,000, you move 10 to David's office, 5 to my office. The remaining 5 I'd like to remain.
We didn't do that.
Part-time.
What was
5 and 5.
It was 5 and 5. There's 5 still left.
Okay.
But he want
So we
that-
did move 15,000.
He want that change back to 10, what he saying?
Okay, that's what my notes from finance say.
Would you take 15 out of there and there was 5 moved to one place and 5 moved to another? So he's wanting the 5 back.
So with the 5 back to go to county building?
I don't remember us designating anything for that other 5, that's why I'm confused, so.
But it was just a 15 cut.
It was just,
Okay.
yeah, okay. So you're just asking for that 5,000 back for buildings?
Is that for maintenance in buildings?
Part-time.
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 I mean, that kind of,
Okay,
I mean,
okay, maintenance
I got
guy,
it.
yeah.
And we didn't designate it for anything anyway, so I mean,
yeah,
it
that's,
should go
yeah,
back.
it should go back.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
well, I mean, it would go, that's, but,
I mean,
Roger.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for that? That seems like a reasonable ask. Okay.
That's it.
Dispatch.
guys had a couple of questions about some payroll adjustments that we had that were above the hazard pay. The increases that we had above the hazard pay was relative to bringing the supervisors up more in line with the variance between the CTO position and the supervisor position based on their responsibilities. Previously, it was a 2.6% difference between those positions compared to the 6.9% between the TC and the CTO position. And we just brought it up to be a little more in line with that 6.9% between the other two positions.
I think our only question was the verbiage in the actual approval was the ARPA plus 2%, but there was also $14,000 of additional raises that were in there, the ones you're discussing. So our question for John was to discuss, I think, with the other committee members, and I think you have another one here too, but did the committee actually approve these additional raises?
Yes.
Okay. That was our question when they sent over here.
Yes, it was included in the original budget that they reviewed. They gave them 8 different options, including with and without hazard pay, as well as 2 up to 6% cost of living. And they approved the actual one that had the 2% plus the hazard pay.
Basically, you were trying to reconcile what they approved back to command because they're under the interlocal.
Yeah, because, I mean, we don't influence this at all, do we?
No, but you need to actually do what
I got
they
it.
approved. That was our question, was that actually what was approved?
All right.
We couldn't determine.
We actually ended up coming in a little
Oh.
less because we found some savings that we could have and actually ended up coming up $21,000 where we were able to save from what they approved.
And I think the other reason back was the radio. Did you see it?
Yes.
I mean, the rules were
Is that
suspended,
okay?
Yes,
so.
Is it-
Mr. Mansfield?
So didn't we talk about like 1% for anybody who already got the ARPA
Yes, we
raises?
did.
And so I'm helping understand
That's
this.
right.
I'm a little confused.
Well, the thing on this one's different, and Eric, I sent Eric a copy too, is you guys actually approved an interlocal agreement with the cities to cover 32% based on what the board approves. So the board were,
that's right.
Mr. Ismail made the recommendation,
So
and
that-
they approved it, so that's kind of what you've got right now.
So the interlocal agreement is written into such that we have to do what they say and we don't get a say in it?
That was my understanding from the former law director, and I sent a copy to Eric, and he may want to speak to this interlocal agreement.
Are we trying to revisit that interlocal agreement?
It talks about the board.
Do you have any notes on that, Eric?
I do not, I didn't bring.
I feel like we probably want to, we need to be able to get to a published budget. This may be one that, we may need to err on the side of caution.
I'm just making sure I know what
Why
we're
we
being told we have to
We take a
do.
break, I can go up and.
David, what board are you talking about?
Well, actually, it's in the budget committee minutes from the last time we pulled up.
It's all unanimous.
There's actually a board, and I forget the name of the board.
Executive committee.
The executive committee, if you look at the interlocal agreement, and I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it reads something that board is to deal with financial and budgetary matters. Us, the city of Hendersonville, and several other cities joined in the interlocal agreement. So if they send it on time, we generally, or the committee, based on what they approve, generally approves it as is based on their intent. That's why I was asking about the adjustment for the radio. She had it labeled radio, but it was a different amount came in, so we adjusted it based on, understanding that was their intent to approve it. She's fine with it too. But That was the only question that came up because we were just making sure to agree. But it should be in the last budget packet too. The interlocal agreement was copied in the last, the May.
The regular meeting?
No, with the special call. The first special call actually had the interlocal agreement in the attached.
So just understanding that the commission is tasked with funding this, but we have no seat at the table or voice at the table
Well,
as a
you-
commission. I'm just,
You approved the agreement with the city. That was my understanding.
We could
from the
break that.
former director.
well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, that'd be something for legislative.
Correct. Okay.
If you want to do that.
Well, I think he does.
At least look at it.
What's the
I think
impact
that's something you
here?
just probably need to discuss with the cities later.
The impact of what?
The funding.
I mean, we just have to, I think there is none to us. I think we just need to have that, adjusted in the overall budget. Is that correct?
So is that
You
how
just
much
pay,
of an increase?
you just pay 32%. It's
Yeah.
already in the budget.
It's already in there.
Oh.
What we're paying is already in there.
I got
But
There's
that was the
no,
discussion to have the mayor
Yeah.
to verify that was the amount they approved, and he's verified that, and I just.
I got you.
Which is asking
She
why,
came to reassure the number.
why it's over the 1% that we talked about last time. Like, are they the exception?
Now, historically, they have taken the county's cost of living, but I didn't see that in the minutes unless I'm looking at it wrong.
that was a good question. Who is on this committee?
Mayor Isabel, Mayor Clary,
Paige Brown,
Paige Brown, yeah.
Westmoreland, Millersville, and Portland. There's 6.
So, okay.
And I think it
all
has
mayors?
It's
62%.
Mayor Callis from Portland, Mayor Clary from Hendersonville,
Okay.
Mayor Brown from
So
Gallatin.
it's all the mayors.
Leach, and then Mr. Avery from
Okay.
Millersville.
And that was the interpretation from the former law director. I'm not necessarily even saying it's true or not, but I can see where the interpretation came from, and I don't know how the mayor or the other mayors. are.
So, I mean, technically, we have not commission representation, but we have county representation. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, their salary shouldn't be, with this agreement, they shouldn't be approved until each of the municipalities approve their budget.
So your interlocal agreement's like a contract, that's the question. I mean, you can join in interlocal agreements and kind of and bind yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the
It's a little
agreement
different.
itself
It's
may
not
need to be
like
looked at. That's,
Your budget.
if not just for the timing of
That's
it.
kind of my point.
Here's some of the things you gotta think of, is your budget
Good
is
point.
subject to, can be approved by the data. Also, your, budget does have to be adjusted for valid court orders and also agreements. So the question is, if the interlocal agreement is being interpreted correctly and it's binding, then my guess is yes, but that would be an error question.
So what's the, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the point's gonna be, we still have to work off the old one until we change
Yeah.
the new one.
Correct.
So for
It's
this
too late.
budget,
So
for
what's the
here,
percentage here versus?
32% is what you covered.
What's the percentage increase in salary?
They got
COLA.
they got a 2% COLA, some of them had some hazard adjustments, and then they had this additional, so like you can click up over the notes.
But our
They're varying
percentage, the two.
amounts.
well, it's 2 overall, and we're 1/3 of that 2.
You're 32%. See, that's their hazard percent, and then these are additional amounts. See, it looks like 2088 is usually like $1 an hour, that's probably where that came from, I would guess. Just about the amount.
So where we've used 2%, what does this equate to?
They've used 2% and they put in that, what used to be the hazard pay, because we only pay a percentage, so we quit paying the hazard pay through ARPA a year ago. And then she's put in some amount, I think, what she was saying for adjustments for like, I guess promotions or.
It's just to bring our supervisors more in line between the positions, because they had a relatively low increase compared to the CTOs based on their responsibilities.
And that gets approved by this committee.
Correct.
And then we, by virtue of the interlocal agreement, we will fund 32% of that increase.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And what's the timing of this committee approving this money?
They approved it a while.
Do what?
They approved it a while back to give it to us.
So I mean, it's an annual process, I'm assuming?
Yes.
So at what point during the year is this approved by that committee?
We first presented it back in February, and they voted on it in March.
Because they needed to test by March 1, so they voted. before she's-
So at least we get a head
Are
start.
all the cities July through June?
Yeah, they're all fiscal years.
So you guys are approving almost at the end of like Q3,
Yes.
Q4 of your fiscal year. That's weird. That's kind of bizarre.
We are too, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's,
A lot of the government agencies are that way.
Now, David, the hazard pay was ARPA?
Originally, what happened is they did the same thing like the other offices, because originally, we did the division, but the county paid their share of it through ARPA. But since it was only 32% and the commission's desire was to win herself off ARPA, they just started paying these hazard pay through vacant positions. That's what I'm saying. In the past, they've had enough vacant positions to fund this. I think they have several right now.
As of today, we have 6, and we averaged 5 positions vacancy. We cover an entire year's hazard pay, but our goal is to be fully staffed by the end of the year.
so just to, and I hate to do this, if there are any other, do you have any more?
Well, I just think not for this cycle, but we've got to put some checks and balances.
Yeah,
Because that committee could, I won't exaggerate, they can give them 100% raises.
Right, and we don't have
And we
any
have
stopgap.
no control whatsoever.
No, I get it. I just think that's,
So-
we've uncovered an issue that's
Yeah.
beyond, we can't do anything about it in this meeting.
Yeah.
So I think we should
Okay.
bring that up in legislative.
Absolutely.
And go
I
ahead.
just have one last question. So we're funding it, it was funded out of ARPA, the hazard pay. Now it's being funded out of shortage of staff.
And next year's being funded by an additional.
But to make up that difference in staff, are we paying overtime to those?
They were being paid overtime. and
Okay,
still
so
not-
it's a net loss.
It's,
Well, in the coming years, if they're gonna be completely full, it's a net increase in your budget.
departments do that all
The
the time.
ARPA, the cost of living, and.
Any other questions?
We're not the ARPA, but that comes in.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All righty, Clerk and Master.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to pass. But I do want to thank all of you for your service. I don't know what you did to be appointed to this committee, but you're paying for it now.
Thank you, sir. Ag extension. 6% raises for them. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
First, I want to say thank you guys for your time. Just one quick thing. On our budget, the only thing that I would like to come back and ask for is I had one employee that I had asked for a merit raise on. She is a program assistant, level 2 program assistant, so part-time, works 32 hours a week. Currently, her hourly rate is only 11 cents more than starting salary, and she's been with us since 2015. So when the starting salary for program assistants was raised, she was raised to 11 cents over starting salary, so she's currently making $15.61, where if I hired somebody new right now, they'd be making $15.50 with that number of years of experience, plus she has a degree as well. I would like to ask for a total increase of, if you round it up, $23.10, the actual amount is $23.08.42. That would bump her up to 17 an hour.
Any questions?
What's she saying?
What was the total amount request?
230842 for that individual.
2,300.
2003.
And that's for the year. And I mean, this budget cycle we're in right now, the vacant positions we had would fund that for quite a while. I don't know that that matters, but.
It's 23,000 a year.
No, 2,300.
2,300
Oh.
for the
Oh,
raise.
the
For the increase
okay.
of
Is that
2,300.
621 or 2,300 more over here?
Where are you talking?
Well,
It's not for this one down here. She's it's program assistant, one of those program assistants. I think it's.
Oh, so it's one of them we share with you pay for it.
She is 100% county funded. She was one of those that, you'll have to explain that more than me, because I wasn't here, that was 100% county funded.
I don't talk-
And then when they switched to UP
Yeah,
and
this is
everything,
a
Enigma.
that makes sense.
So we're still paying 100% of that?
Hers is 100%.
So how does she compare to the others?
If you look right here, she's making $25,980. So if you look at her, and I don't have names on that sheet there, but $25,210, $700 more than that program assistant. Two right there, I believe is, and I can tell you if I look at them for long enough, give me just 1 second. I believe that was one that's been there for like 2-3 years.
Okay.
We're fine with us opening the names, because that's so you don't read.
Yeah, you can
So let's open the names up, and she can tell you how to do it.
So that, Leanne Faust is the one that I'm talking about here. So if you look at that there, Jessica Donnell, that 25,714, she got hired in the fall of, let me do my math right, 2021.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, I mean, if you go back over, I can go through and
So
tell you all the rest of those.
$800 difference after.
And Jessica has no degree, she's been there for a short period of time. Leanne being there since
Okay.
2015. I think she just fell through the cracks, to be honest with you.
Is her job requirement a degree, or she said?
It does not require a degree. It's very helpful that she has one, but it does not require. But if you want me to go down through there, like Michelle Sadler, right here, she started in, I want to say August. So you can kind of see.
I think we can do this during the workshop. I think we get the point here. Is there any other questions?
Which one's name was it?
Leanne Faust.
If you just highlight that one, please, so we're tracking.
Do you need that amount?
Yeah, I think it said 230842.
Yeah.
And that was in addition to the, we're
Thank
going
you.
to change the 522, 2308, or in addition to that situation.
Where are we at? Take the cost of living. Are you talking about the COLA?
You would
Say
add,
the second 520 there, would you add that on top of that, or would it come out?
I'm good either
which one
way.
were you asking for there, though?
I would prefer if it was on top.
The 20, so you're asking for 230842 on top of the 520?
Yes, I would prefer
Okay.
that for her.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions?
No, thank you. Or, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Didn't mean it that way. No, thank you, Roger. All right, Circuit Clerk Court. It's been a long day.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, basically, what I'm asking for is that the COLA raise be added to my clerical line item. the way this was set up and presented this year has been different for me than it has been the entire time I've been in office. I've always gotten whatever percentage is given on the total clerical line item, and then I'm able to divvy that up as need be. So if I have an employee that's just started 20 days before, the new budget goes in, I might not necessarily give them a raise immediately. And I'm able to distribute it later on. Or if I have an employee who retires at a higher end, and I want to redistribute those funds, however need be, if I don't hire somebody in at that higher rate, those funds are retained. But this year, all of that, any of the extra money was captured and taken away. And so now I'm in a position where I can't even use my full budget amount for this budget cycle. So giving me 2% on my total line item would solve that, or at the very least, allow me to go ahead and use my budget money for this year, and then they'll get the 2% on top of that.
Let me tell you the process we follow, and that's kind of where we're at. Anytime we send in, I think it's like mid-January, we'll send out worksheets to all the department heads. They're to be back by March 1. They send us what they request, which would be what you requested. Then we send it back to you and ask for verification. Yours was sent back April 5th before we received verification, so that's how we got the numbers that's in there. What she's asking is for any of the attrition money or for any adjustments she's wanting to do now to be added back into her budget. If we get those requests, we put them on the sheets. But the question is, there's several departments that the attrition money generally comes out of, so. I don't, that's all I can say is just the process. I'm not saying forward.
So let me get this. So because we did the 2% by line item, or by position.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the request, which is roll them all up and give 2% across the board, and I understand why there, so you can, I understand that rationale, but the downside to that, just from a numbers point of view, is her department's capturing the attrition and can redistribute it how that as opposed to.
But at the same time, if she would sit back to us, what a lot of people request for instance.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying.
But it's not necessarily attrition. I mean, if I just hired somebody, or if I just had somebody retire at a higher rate of pay, and in January, and I have yet to figure out even what I'm gonna do, that money's gone by March 1st, and now I'm stuck and can't even use the rest of it. So, I mean, at least going into this year, I have no idea if I've got a Deputy 3 position and I've got somebody that I could move from Deputy 2 up to Deputy 3 because they've been here a long time and I haven't been able to in the past. When somebody retires, it allows me to move somebody up. Or, like this year, I didn't ask for a bump on one of my salaries because when I move into the new building, the runner position is being converted to a deputy clerk position because I won't need a runner. Well, that position makes less than what a deputy clerk makes. But I can do that without having to ask for more money and typically have the decision-making power as the elected official to determine who gets that within what was approved under last year's budget within my department. But now I've been locked in as of March 1st. So anything that happens between March 1st and July 1, if I have somebody quit tomorrow, I have no leeway there to determine what their starting pay is.
So I'm not following that piece.
Yeah.
So like what, give me, just
Right
make
now,
up.
she sent these raises. If we put these raises in and another 80 cents an hour when we got today, when we go into next year budget, remember how people were over? It's gonna throw her whole budget over, so.
If I put these raises in, it will be within the budget that has already been granted under what I have right now.
She'll be short next year, those mine.
That's what, but irregardless of that, this is a budget. What we're supposed to be doing is a budget, not, and the numbers have been based on exactly what it is, which actually is not correct because one of them is wrong. And I didn't catch it because I really, honestly, for the entire time I've been in office, that raise has gone to the single line item. And it was changed, and I had no idea it was going to be changed. So when
I think you made the same request last year.
I've made it, I mean,
Yeah,
every,
she
every
comes
year
in-
that I've been in office for
They've
9
been
years,
changing it
it's
for
been
her.
this way. Jerry's been on this committee
So
for.
I don't,
Maybe
going back to
change
my
it for
question
her.
though, I don't think it got answered. If it did, I didn't understand that was an answer. But, so give me if someone retires in February or January, what aren't you allowed to do?
Or let's say somebody quits
Mhm.
and they make $17 an hour,
Okay.
and my best candidate will only get it for $18 an hour. And maybe I've got some in there because somebody did retire a couple months ago and I hired them, if somebody retires in January and I hired somebody in at $18 an hour, but the person quit at $21 an hour, I've got a couple dollars an hour in there extra that's still within my budget that's approved from the previous year.
Thing is, she's gotta make her next year request by March 1.
Yeah, so I mean.
But I still have money in
this
my
isn't a new
budget
issue.
that's approved from this year that I should be allowed to use.
So here's.
We can go, and the question is, we can, and the question is, statutory, these raises, I'm gonna put them in, but she's gonna be short next year.
Now,
That's where I'm gonna come.
well,
in.
then the budget should be done off your budget and not what your actual dollars are on March 1st, in my opinion, because otherwise you're locking everybody in and if anything happens in your office.
Counterpoint though, I mean, I get it, I get it, like,
Yeah,
I get it,
I know.
you run a department and you wanna run your department, I get it.
Yeah.
And you want the flexibility to be able to adjust to the market, I
I
get it.
don't want to feel forced to spend money on behalf of my employees because I'm going to screw them and lose it if I don't.
Counter-
This way, if I don't spend every penny in my budget, the county gets the money back.
Counterpoint though.
It wasn't in her request.
Let me just throw this out there, if you, I don't even wanna go down that path, but
Yeah,
like, just.
I mean, I'm not
here's-
blaming anyone.
No,
I'm
I
just
get
trying
it.
to-
And I understand the request, but let's say you adjust up, you got a person who left, retired at 17, 16, well, you
Sure.
get your best candidate, which I totally understand, market force is $18. Aren't we shadow increasing everybody's salary without really much oversight throughout the year? And
Well, I
throughout.
mean, I oversee it.
Well, no, but I mean, but
That's
what
what
I
I'm
mean,
elected
but what
to
I
do.
mean is like that these kind of continuously, there's not any oversight here. I mean, they kind of get, and I'm not saying that necessarily we have to. I'm just saying that is the downside of this. That if we do it that way, yes, you have more flexibility, but you will also see salaries tick up over time. All of them will tick up over time. As somebody attrits, you'll be able to, that's the
For a
thing.
department this size we're talking about, it may not be magnified, but if you're talking about like a whole school system.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody will wanna do it.
it's
Yeah.
It can be astronomical.
That's
Not
right.
for or against, but here's my.
I mean, the
my
problem is if you look back at what my budget versus my spending is, that hasn't been the case. I've been fiscally responsible. I don't allocate every single dollar. And essentially what you're going to have, if this is how it's gonna be done from here on out, what you're gonna have people do is ensure that they do use every dollar. If I had done this before March 1st, I would get the 2% that I'm asking for every single person. So what you're gonna do is make sure that I get my employees every dollar that was allocated to them in the previous budget cycle before March 1st, because now I'm gonna be locked in. Whereas I'm trying to be fiscally responsible and say, hey, I had this person retire, but I wanna save this $2 to be able to give to this person in December when the runner position goes away. But for this fiscal year, that money just goes back to the county.
Yeah, I agree with what Ms. Strong is saying, and then just in general, hold on a second. I completely agree with giving the 2% at the high number level and letting the department heads divvy it out.
So you're
I
saying.
mean,
we're gonna go
that's,
all
I mean,
over?
I've been working in the business world for 25-something years, and that's how it's always worked.
Here's kind of what we're running into. Statute, I was supposed to have a request by March 1. The request didn't include it. I include whatever your request says in the sheet.
Okay, my full budget asked for
It's okay.
6% on my county,
I
on
get
my
it.
clerical line.
We don't
item.
have to get down into that.
I
But that's all I'm saying.
I got back a
I'm
response
I
saying,
get it.
we got 2%.
We've got I get it.
I
We've
was at a
got
clerk's
we've got a
office,
decision
yeah.
to make. I don't think we need, I think it's clear. We've got a decision to make.
David, if you want me to hear, I messed up, I messed
it's
up the
okay.
timeline,
It's
that's
okay.
my
It's
bad.
I'm just saying.
But
It's
we
okay.
are where we are, and at the bare minimum, I have one
right.
employee who currently their salary is.
So here,
completely
let me, and I just want to move us along here. We've got a decision to make. That decision
right.
is, do we give you that budget at the department level line item, or do we break it down? Got it.
Correct.
Understand, we've got a decision to make in the workshop. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Easier for us to do it that way.
Thank you. Okay, libraries.
Good evening. Thank you all for all of your support. I feel like I need a frequent flyer card because I'm here a lot.
Me too.
I know, we'll get them together. I'm not here to ask for really any more money. I'm just here to ask for some corrections to be made. As you know, this past 6 to 9 months has been a whirlwind. All of our directors are new. We dissolved the library system, which was, I know, a request of a lot of the commissioners to get rid of that. All of the money was taken out of the library system mid-year and given back to the libraries where it was taken from. We also then, coming this year, fiscal year, you can see that the library system is completely drained. It's all at 100% gone. The IT department is giving us some money back that was taken away a couple years ago. So there's been a lot of movement between the budgets of 2023 and now this budget. I have a little sheet, kind of a little cheat sheet that if you guys want to take this and that you can make your notes on it. As I said, we're not really asking for any more money. We'll take our 2% for COLA. We understand when we originally asked for 4% at the bottom that was not granted. A couple of the corrections that I need to have made, please, from what is on these sheets is for Hendersonville, and Jessica and I have already talked about this. This is just a correction that just didn't get made in time for this report. But instead of the money coming out the 4%, I was asked at one point to take the 4% and add it to all the lines at the bottom, and then it came back from you guys and said no. And so instead of going back and taking it out of every individual line for all 5 libraries, Jessica just went in and took it out of electricity.
That's what they did.
That's what they did. Okay, sorry. So that was okay. I know that was easy to do. But some of the libraries with the inflation rates and electricity utilities going up, they asked for it to be taken out of a different line rather than electricity. So for Hendersonville, and I've already talked to Jessica, and she's got that underway, it just didn't make it to this report, is to take the 8527 and take it out of janitorial and put the money back into electricity. For Westmoreland, there was an error, I don't know where it came from, talking to Mr. Loyne and Ms. Browning. We believe that it was a typo that occurred and we just didn't catch it. That the original amount for janitorial previously was $6,000 when they went through to reallocate their funds. It says 580 when it should have been 5,800. So we took it from 6,000 to 5,800, but it was a typo and it just reads 580. So we just want to get that money back in there. Again, we're not asking for anything additional. For Millersville, there was a children's librarian that currently is paid $35,412. That was the amount once the salary adjustments were made. In this report, it says $32,573. I guess it was just an oversight and we didn't catch it, but now we caught it. So we're just asking for that to be put back to the $35,412 because that's what she's currently being made. So the difference to correct the right salary number with the COLA included is $28.96. But she's already being paid that amount and we're just carrying it over plus the 2%.
And looking back at our notes, I think they just typoed it when they sent it to us because the $35,412 should be what the start pay is for that particular position. And then the actual current janitorial is more than that. So I think the girl that sent it to us, instead of she just left a zero out. And then the other one, she just used the old amount before it was adjusted a year ago, I think. And she just didn't catch it. She's new, the girl in Westmoreland.
They're all new.
They
This
just
is the
didn't catch
first
it. We
year
sent them
for
a
all of them.
notification, but I think it's just mistakes.
So we appreciate your support in letting us make those corrections. Again, this has just been a whirlwind of the last 6 to 9 months, trying to dissolve the library system. All of the directors are brand new. This is their first year going through it. It's my first year on the boards, being the treasurer, and there's just been a lot of sheets going back and forth. And so we appreciate your understanding that there was just a couple of typos made. And again, we're not asking for any additional money, just asking to get these numbers corrected.
I'm not suggesting it's a lot of money at all, but I'm not seeing a net zero.
A net zero? No, they accidentally typed what they requested wrong, what they did.
Oh.
That, in other words, it's not a net zero. On the first one is a net zero. It's you guys, because the 4% you didn't know what line item, you just took it out of utilities. And
Yeah, I got that one.
The next one, they accidentally, when they sent it to us, instead of putting 5,800 in, they put 580.
Okay.
So they missed that one. In the next one, they used an old salary of 32,573 instead of 35,412, and they sent it to us.
Which is 35,412 is what the current employee is being paid right now, and that's based off of the salary adjustments.
Right, and the actual position was vacant, but the start pay was 35,412, and then the lady sent it over, sent us 32,573 by accident. So I think they're not net zero, but I think they were simple oversights, and it's actually going to create an issue for an employee. That
So it's like, I'm seeing like a plus 11,500, something like that.
No.
54 and then 28, about 80 some $100. That 85 is just an adjustment between lines, the first one.
But Miller's got a second one too. Additional 3,000.
That's the total of what the
difference.
librarian's line should read.
She's estimated benefits on there too, yeah.
Okay. So it's plus 8,400.
The 5420 and the 2896.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, so it's really the 2896 is what we're adding. It was making the correction for Millersville because the wrong salary was listed. And then for Westmoreland, it was a typo of going from 580. It should have been 5,800. The original amount was 6,000, and it got lowered to 5,800, but in the process, it was left off a zero.
Okay.
So we're not asking for any more money. We're just, from what we originally did, we're just correcting a few things.
Okay, thank you very much.
And then the Hendersonville, that's already been taken care of with Jessica, moving it out of, putting it back into electricity and adding, and taking it away from janitorial, and that's just a wash.
We're trying to get rid of interpolation.
Mr. Hyde, you had
I had two questions, Diane. One, that's a good chunk of money out of janitorial. What is that going to do to janitorial service for the Hendersonville
We're
Library?
rebidding it. Our janitorial right now is extremely high, and we are rebidding it and feel like that will be quite fine to lower our expense.
So you're expecting a lower figure. What if it doesn't?
We'll bid it. This will cover what it used to be. This new contract that they signed is exorbitantly high. It includes the cleaning service providing the janitorial supplies like toilet paper and paper towels, trash bags, those kind of things. And you can do it so much better on your own rather than having somebody do something that's really not their core business.
And we're not adding any extra days to library service.
Not at the moment. That has not been approved by the board.
Well, it's not been approved by us either.
No.
But that's not going into this, no assumptions have been made for this budget that way. Got it.
Okay.
We are quite comfortable with moving this 8527 out of janitorial quite comfortably because we should even have a little extra in there for when we need to clean certain carpets and certain window cleaning, and that also comes out of there. But our new bid will quite suffice what's in there.
Well, and my question, just very briefly, it is generated because I'm a resident of Hendersonville, and I certainly support the library. I joined the Friends, but this is not the year to expand services like opening another day. So I hope you and the library board keep that in mind, and I'm holding Jackie responsible for that.
I think there's a lot of settling down that has to occur, and I agree with you.
There has to be a lot more money coming in too.
Any questions?
One.
Go ahead.
Are all the libraries, is all the service, or cleaning services, is all contracted out?
It is.
So we don't have our own employees in any of the facilities?
No.
Okay.
Well, we have one employee that, Portland, can Anita speak to that?
Sure.
Since it's her office?
Go ahead.
We do have one part-time employee that actually does our own cleaning, yes. We supply or buy all the products ourselves, and then she does the cleaning after hours, yes.
Okay.
It is a part-time person, yes.
Okay, that's all.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
General sessions.
This is just simply a request to transfer funds. We had 2 employees that retired within this last year, at a $3,000 amount that we're asking to divide between 2 employees based upon increased responsibilities within their particular division.
Question for
I'll
you.
throw next year's budget off.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why he's here. Is, if he gives these increases, we'll throw you off next year.
All right. I have a question for you though, because I think I'm just interested. Forgive my ignorance. Do you, if you have turnover, do you typically reallocate funds or?
We don't have a lot of turnover. This is the first, I've been in office for 5 years.
This is the first one.
And this is
All
the
right.
first turnover we've had.
Okay. And so if this happens, how much does it throw us off?
That's the same thing he's doing right here. He's wanting to reallocate.
Yeah, no, that's why I asked the question. That's why I'm.
If you go back to the budget, you're gonna have to add several $1,000s back to some of it. If you just start multiplying on line items for attrition, you're gonna have to issues in other departments.
Okay. So I think this is just something we'll have to consider during the workshop then. Is there any other questions?
I think we got
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
it.
Judge. EMS?
Yes. Yeah, we have.
My packets. I think I got it in my packet.
Did we forget we have packets?
Well, no, we're just making sure we have the amount for what he's talking
Okay.
about.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yes, please. Go ahead, Mr. Boss.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah, just let me keep them and I'll read them out. I'll take them if you don't mind.
Sorry.
I just would like to see them.
I'll keep them. I'll work out the socials while you're.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so I just wanted to update the committee on where we stand with the surrounding counties with our pay and our schedule. So right here you see Montgomery County, and I think they're very comparable to us, approximately 125 paramedics. They have similar benefits, time off and whatnot. Paramedics are starting out at $71,275. We start at $63,000 right now. So if we click along, we'll go through a few more. See Wilson County right here, they're at 69. EMTs are at 56. Nashville Fire Department, they're 65 to 84,000 each, 6% additional for bachelor's and associate's degree. We do not have that in our pay scale. You also notice they take 35 days of vacation and holiday per year. Yeah, they got some benefits. So here you see Sumner County is kind of where we fit in. $63,658 is the starting pay for a paramedic, and AEMT is $53,000, and our BLS department is at $48,000. Rutherford County, they make less than us, $54,000 to $58,000. Here's the big deal: 24/72 shifts. We work 24 on, 48 off. So they are working significantly less amount of hours to get that pay. Robertson County, they're pretty comparable to us. The biggest thing they have over top of this is a critical care stipend. And so you'll see our paramedics making about $18 an hour. They're $20 to $22 an hour. They do work the same shifts as we do as well. When Cheatham County just in here, they're $18.54 to $20 an hour. But again, they are on they have a Kelly day in there. They don't work as many hours as we do, and it all comes up to that next chart. So here's kind of where we fit in. Williamson County, they're starting out anywhere from 58 to 81,000, depending upon experience. Montgomery County, see them there to 71. You also know they're transitioning to the 12-hour shifts. So that's something that we need to look at in the future. Obviously not asking for it this year, but that's the trend in the EMS is they're going to less hours work and keeping the pay where they're at. Right now with our hazard pay, where we stand today, we're right there in the middle. You see Rutherford and Cheatham, they're down here working less hours. We work the maximum number of hours to get to our salary as anybody else. And really say all that to say we would like to keep the additional 5% that we requested in our budget as a COLA.
Any other questions for Mr. Boss? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Highway, I don't know if Toby's here. I think you were going to brief this, David. Yeah.
Hey, Bob, can you pass
Can
this?
you-
I did have a quick question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So on the Rutherford County, you said they do what, 24?
24 on 72 hours.
And we're 24?
48. We work every third day.
So how many more employees would you have to have to go 24/7?
It would need 31 additional full-time employees.
All right, I figured.
To add a shift, they would add an entire shift, yes, sir. And so we're trying to hold off on that.
Yeah.
We are looking at transitioning in the future to that as some busier stations. I don't think that fits our county as a whole, but I think one day this show will need to be there. So.
All right, appreciate it.
Mr. Hyde, we have one more.
On a turnover rate, how many of the paramedics would you say we lose per month?
Currently, we're at 7 employees down. We've been sitting there for, I'd say, 6 months or better. And yeah, National Fire Department, talked to them. They're looking at adding 3 additional ambulances this budget cycle. They hire 11 people per ambulance. So we know they're gonna need 33 more. We know that the paramedic pool is shrunk. We don't have as many people going to paramedic school as we have. So the goal here is to hold on to what we have the best we can and try to get these positions back.
And that's 2 years of training.
That's correct, yes, sir. It's 3 total from EMT, AMT through paramedic school. You'll be in there 3 years total. And you have to be an EMT before paramedic.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Yeah.
Highway. Mr. Long, I think you can brief
Yes,
this one.
there's a couple things on highway. First, is there's an employee that was actually on the, what's the word when you first start? Probation, I guess. It's $1 an hour that Toby's asked to add in there. Also, he did not have in there his certified public administrator that all the other officials get if they complete the class. And then the last thing, during the workshop, we just need to discuss his reserves and his gas tax.
Yeah, I know you brought that up before. And we'll cover that during workshop. Any other question, or any questions for Mr. Long regarding highway? Okay.
What was like the increase?
What
What
was-
we previously looked at?
He was asking for a $1 increase, which should be about 2,000, I think, and 90 hours for highway next year is at 80. 2,080 for next year. So it'll be 2,080 plus benefits, and then the $1,500 for Toby plus benefits. And then if you go down Bethany, he's showing at 517,884, and just 1 month's expenditures is 996,666, means 478,783 right now short. The state recommends 2 months' expenditures. I've actually confirmed their recommendation with the state Department of Local Finance. They said they would give us a negative note on their budget if we didn't have at least 1 month's expenditures, because they considered it very concerning.
But Mr. Ellis's request was this $3,500.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, we'll get to that second part during the workshop.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
bigger
it's a bigger
problem.
discussion.
Yeah. Okay, we're at 7:12. Let's convene back, let's take a little break and let's convene back here. Go ahead.
Is the election commission showed up? Is there a reason? Do we know? I thought maybe they were just running late. I just want to make sure.
Good.
The election commission.
She told me that they were coming, but that was when she thought it was on the 23rd. Then I emailed everybody and told them to come back on the 22nd. And it got changed and they were on that email, so.
Lori, they changed it from 16th to 23rd.
Yeah, but if you look at that very first thing in your notes, that email, that,
Oh, is there one back here?
the very first email behind your agenda.
Oh, okay. Well, that's where you sent everybody telling them it was the 26th.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything.
All right.
She knows it was today and we put her on the agenda.
Let's convene back here at 7:25. 10-minute break, 13-minute break.
7:25.
Yeah, 15 minutes, 15. Well, 7:20, 7:20.
Somebody called that out.